Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're seeing this or watching this from. I really want to thank you for your engagement and your constant support and sometimes criticisms. Um, it's because of you I'm still doing this. It's because of you I did not stop after the third episode, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your support. The last time I was here, I said I was going to talk about PhDs. And yes, I've come back with a very controversial question to you tonight. The question is your PhD worth it? Do you think what you're doing as a PhD or what you want to do is worth it? And it's not that it's going to be worth it, because that's one question that academics would love to answer. You know, that version of them standing on the podium 3 years from their graduation and trying to make everything make sense in retrospect. I mean, right now, in the middle of it, right? That's what I'm doing right now. The isolation, the self-doubt, the data collection or recruitment challenges, the constant supervisor meetings, the moment where you begin to question yourself and you begin to wonder whether, whether you could have been better outside of the research. And if you're not in the program yet, say you're standing at the door, you're knocking, you're applying for funding, you're applying for admissions in different places. I want to give you something that is honest, something more open than the university brochure would do, or something better than, the video I made about how to apply for PhD admissions. I want to tell you some honest things about being in a PhD program, because I'm inside of it right now. I'm not finished. I hope to finish soon, but then I'm not reflecting from a distance, right? I'm going to tell you how it feels to actually be in this process right now. So, welcome back to Rhoda 360. It's 360 degrees of inspiration, impact, and insight. And I'm glad that you keep joining me. Again, my name is Rhoda, if you don't know. And if you've been with me since, you'd know that in this space, we discuss honest conversations, right? And we don't perform here. Although I try to now make the episodes interesting, I try to come out of that street academic persona and just try to just relax. I'm getting used to being on camera anyways. And I'm not going to give you the sanitized version of hard things. Yeah, few truths, hard truths that must be understood. And one of these things is a doctoral journey. Today, I want to talk about PhDs, not the prestige, not the DR after your name, those letters. I'll talk about the actual experience, what this experience does to your identity, your relationships, your family, your marriage, if you were married, your sense of self, your finance, what nobody tells you before you start, what it costs, and ultimately whether it is worth it. And I'm going to be clear up front. I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer, to that question. But the honest answer is that it depends on you. It depends on your why. It depends on why you chose to do this. So, yeah, I'm going to tell you exactly how it is from my own perspective. From my own perspective. So, let's dive into it. What are some of those reasons people do PhDs. Some of these reasons can be actually dangerous. We need to know, why do people get into PhD programs? Why do people decide to do PhD programs? So let's start with the motivation, right? You know how it is. Motivation, the hard truth, then motivation, right? Because I think of a lot of PhD journeys going wrong even before they begin, at the point of deciding why. What is your why? There are good reasons to do a PhD. There are reasons, that feel good, but will swallow you, somewhere around your second or third year if you're not careful. Some of the good reasons are, in my observations or from discussions with people, some of the good reasons usually have something in common. They are internally motivated. They are not something that people do, just because. They have meaning. The answer to your why would always live in you, not in what others think when you finish, not in the name they give, not I want to show them I've arrived. No. It could be that maybe you have a genuine, burning, intellectual question, that research questions that existing studies have not answered. Maybe you want to contribute something original to a field, or an area that you care about deeply. Maybe you're working at the intersection of two worlds that, haven't spoken to each other yet. Because that's where I am. That's why I laughed, I'm in an intersection of three worlds that have not really, spoken to each other research-wise yet. So I'm trying to build that bridge. Those are real reasons. They are sustainable. Then there are other reasons. The ones that human beings find it harder to admit. Doing a PhD because you don't know what else to do after a master's degree, or you don't know what else to do maybe when you're undergoing some career changes, or because someone told you that was the best or the smartest decision to take because you're a smart person, you're intelligent, so you should go for a PhD. Or doing it for the title, the doctor title, because of you need some external validation. Some people that couldn't get into medical school want to do a PhD because of the doctor title. Again, doing it because you want to delay a decision about your career. You don't know what to do at the moment. So you think, okay, throwing in a PhD would give you a roadmap. Probably it would. Now, I will say this with zero judgment, because I have sat with all of those motivations at different points in my own journey. I have had to, ask myself why I was doing this. At a point, the reason why I was doing it wasn't really the smartest reason, or wasn't really the best reason. At a point, like the other reasons that were not good reasons, the dangerous ones, those were also my reason. So I'm not here to judge anybody, because the difference between reason and a justification is something you only learn in the middle of the work. Once you think you know the reason why you embarked on a PhD or on a research journey, it's when you get to the middle, the hard part. That's when you actually know that, okay, this is why you're doing it sometimes. So yeah. What I know about the PhD right now is that the PhD will find out why you're really there. It's not you that will find out. It's a PhD that will do it. And if your foundation is shaky, then the PhD process will shake it. And for many are being shaken right now because they didn't have a solid base, a solid reason why I started a PhD. Okay, so let's talk about why what the uni brochure, the uni PhD adverts, what they don't say. And nobody tells you about the loneliness that comes with doing a PhD. Now, I don't mean loneliness in the casual sense, right? I mean the specific kind of intellectual loneliness. The word is not intellectual, but that's the only word I can come up with right now. That loneliness that comes from working on something so specific, something so niche, something so particular to only you, that there are only a few people in your life who can fully understand what you're doing, let alone why it matters. Even in your research school, say School of Pharmacy, for instance, only a few people, maybe your supervisor plus one person understands what you're doing. Your friends, your family, your partners, they support you, they want to be there. But when you try to explain, say, your theoretical framework or your conceptual framework or what you're doing and how you're doing or how you're collecting your data or the challenges you're going through, you're experiencing while you're recruiting, or why the results of your pilot study is forcing you to reconsider that methodology. Their eyes widen and sometimes all close because they don't understand what you're talking about. Not because they don't care, but because they actually genuinely cannot enter that world with you. So you are alone. That is the loneliness I'm talking about. That isolation is real and it's really underestimated. Nobody tells you that at the beginning. Yeah, they tell you, yeah, PhD is isolating, but nobody really goes deep to tell you why they think it's that isolating. Now you come in maybe from your country or from your career or from industry. You come in as a professional, as someone with years of experience in the industry or whatever job experience you had. And then someone with respect and credibility in your own world. Then the academic world does something to you. It reminds you that you are only a student in that space. It reminds you that your ideas are provisional. It reminds you that your work is subject to criticism every day. It has to be critiqued. Then your confidence regularly gets interrogated by a process that by design, academic process by design is adversarial. So for someone like me, who, had been in the clinical aspects, regulatory professional, has operated in high-level multiple professional contexts, sat with leaders of industries, that recalibration is humbling. It's really humbling, although it's necessary. However, it's not comfortable at all. It's not. And nobody adequately prepares you for, that discomfort. Nobody tells you about the recalibration, the recruitment. And I want to sit here for a while. You see, recruitment and data collection in a PhD. Oh, my God, my God, my God, my God. This one is personal because the past few months I've been recruiting, and one would think that when you design a study, when you spend months on your literature review, your ethics application, discussing with experts in your field. You design your survey instrument. That takes time. One would think that you have a vision of how it will go. You begin to imagine that participants will respond, data will flow, analysis will come in easy, writing will be done, you would find things will excite you, you would write them up, right? But the reality soon arrives. It hits. Recruiting some people or some types of participants in New Zealand for a research study and I'm trying to be careful here, is an exercise. Is an exercise that requires patience. It requires creativity. It requires endurance. It requires the refusal to take silence and rejection personally. I have sent invitations that disappeared into inboxes. I have followed up with organizations who were interested and then went quiet. I have sat with response rates that are embarrassing. Response rates that did not match my timeline at all. And I had to ask myself whether the methodology needed to change, or if it needed to change, or whether I needed to just simply hold on and persist. I could go on and on, but see, that experience, which I am still in the process right now, it taught me something important. And that thing is that the gap between research, the literature review, the design, the research reality, that intersection is where you grow the most. Because that's where the honest research actually lives. If you're able to survive that, then you're good to go. Another thing nobody tells you about a PhD process is that you will change. The PhD will ask you to change. You will change, not just intellectually, right? You will change personally. The PhD is like an identity project. But of course, it's dressed up as an academic one. By the time you finish, or if you finish, oh my God, I'm so sorry for that. If you finish, I'm hoping you finish. I'm hoping if anybody starts this process, you would actually finish. But by the time you finish, you will not be exactly the person who started. You will not. Something would have shifted in your mindset, in your body, in your goals, in your mentality, in the way you see and reason things. You will begin to question differently. You will have a relationship with uncertainty, that most people never develop. You will begin to be able to now sit with your thoughts. The other day I was listening to a podcast. A popular Nigerian podcaster had a guest, and the guest was talking about how to sit with your thoughts. And that most people have not developed the ability to actually sit with your thoughts, especially in these days of social media and gadgets. And most people would never develop that skill. But in a PhD, you get to develop it. Because it's in this process that you sit with unresolved questions for years at the same time. One question for like 3 to 4 to 5 years of your life. That is a gift. That's a gift. But it does not always feel like, a gift while it's happening because it's hard. Like I said, some people have not found, or some of us are still trying to learn how to sit with ourselves, let alone sit with one abstract questions or one abstract question for years. So, what is the cost of doing a PhD? Not the financial cost now, not the money. Yeah, the money is important. The fees is important. Less for me, PhD students all over the world should not be paying tuition. But then that's the discussion for another day. I'm talking about the other cost, right? One is time, one is in relationship, the other one is financial, your mental health, your physical health as a person, you know? So, like, for instance, time, PhD takes years of your life, years that your peers without the doctorate degrees, years that your colleagues are spending building, businesses, advancing careers, raising families, accumulating savings, traveling. I love to travel. About raising families, because I grew up almost as a lonely child. And I thought I was going to have as many kids as possible. Right. So if for someone like me, if I wasn't doing a PhD, I think I would have many children. But with this program now, I cannot even think about it. Right. Accumulation of savings. Where do I have that time to, work extra when the PhD is already a full-time job? Right. Traveling. I love to travel. But one lucky thing with me is that my research journey has helped me to, travel to one place for my master's, travel to in another place for my PhD. And in this country, I'm able to, New Zealand is a small country yet, right? So I'm able to travel to see places as much as I can. And that's one blessing of being in Australia, in a beautiful place. New Zealand is a beautiful place. So you don't have to go too far or spend too much to actually give yourself, that gift, that makes use of that opportunity, right? That you've maybe if you like a traveler, like. So there's an opportunity cost to a doctoral study that is not always discussed. And when people talk about it, they don't talk about it honestly, especially if you're in academia, because you're making a bet. You're making a bet that the investment of all these years, these 3, 4, 5 years will return, something those other parts could not have given you. That bet might pay off. For some, might not. So you need to go in with your eyes open, with your minds open. Another cost is relationship. I won't generalize here because everybody's experience is different. But what I will say is the PhD creates, that field, that gravitational field around you that affects the people closest to you. If you have supportive partners, those partners carry more. Your children will notice the distraction. How you're always, on your laptop, on your desk, trying to fix some things. People around you would notice. Friendships would fade, right? They will fade during these years because you have less bandwidth for adding to friendships. When they give you, you might not have financially time or otherwise to give back, right? And this is not inevitable. Friendships requires active, intentional, management, and so does your PhD. Most times, you have to choose your PhD, right? Another one that people not talk about most times, yeah, people try, but not always, is your mental health. See, the research on doctoral student well-being, It's not reassuring. And if you read text about student well-being, then you know that people take more antidepressants when they are doing a PhD than before they started or after they had finished. Because the rates of anxiety and depression among PhD students is significantly higher than the general population and than other postgraduate or even undergraduate students. Because here you have combination of isolation, you have imposter syndrome, you have financial pressure, you have dependency on supervision or supervisor relationship. You might have some form of romantic or familiar relationship that you're battling with, some form of trauma you're trying to heal from. That extended uncertainty of the process and the conditions that it creates. All these can be psychologically demanding. I think it's irresponsible to talk about PhDs without naming all these costs, especially the mental cost of it clearly. If you're a PhD or you're in a PhD and you're struggling, please, I need to help me and hear me clearly. That struggle does not mean you're not capable. You are capable. You're capable. One thing it means is that you're taking your work seriously, but it also means that you need support, real support. So please find, your school counseling session. Take advantage of it. I have taken advantage of it by twice, and it helped me. Another cost is the financial cost. Now, unless you have a fully funded scholarship, PhD is a financial sacrifice. In New Zealand and many parts of the world, the stipends that PhD students live on is an amount that require more supplementation or genuine, strict sacrifice, strict money management. Now, that is a real structural issue. And that's how academia values the people producing its knowledge, unfortunately. I'm naming it, I'm calling it out because it's true. These costs are real. And not listing them to discourage you, right? Talking about them so that if you choose to go on into a PhD program, or if you're already on it, like I am, or if you choose to continue in the career trajectory, like probably postdoc or further on in academic trajectory, you will go in with full information and not with the romanticized version that the university brochure will present to you. Yeah, I should take some water. So, as I discussed, PhD gives you something that nothing else can, right? I know. I have just spent several minutes telling you hard truths about engaging in PhD programs or PhD program. Now I want to tell you something else. There are things that the process of obtaining a PhD gives you that I have not found anywhere else. Probably, and like I'm sharing because this journey is personal to me. Yours might be different. I'm not saying it to justify the cost. I say it because it is true. And the truth requires that I honor both, sides, both the cost, and the advantages. One, it gives you a relationship with your own thinking. Like I said, it helps you to sit with your thoughts. A PhD teaches you how to construct knowledge, how, not just what you know, but how you know it, how to put it together. Why you believe, what you believe, that construct, where your assumptions lead, how to interrogate evidence. When you see something, how do you interrogate evidence? Before now, I used to think, why is my supervisor always criticizing my work? But now I understand, PhD teaches you how to hold a question open for long enough to actually understand it, rather than settling for the first answer that sounds right. And that's why people that use AI to do their thinking will have issues. Because in a world that is increasingly becoming fast, reactive, everything is becoming polarized right now, that kind of thinking is countercultural. You don't just accept the first answer that comes. You have to interrogate it. It is also, I believe, that thinking of interrogation is actually essential right now because, another thing is that it gives you original contribution to knowledge with your name on it, of course. Because at the end of this process, there will be something in the world that did not exist before I put it there. At least, no matter how small the knowledge is, a piece of understanding about, say, how healthcare professionals in a certain space think about pain management. It could be small in the grand scheme of things. It could be small, minute, but its original contribution, it's real, it's documented, it's citable, it is mine. There's something, profound about that, about being part of the long, imperfect, slow, and I mean very slow, but deeply human project of building knowledge across generations. And I do not take that lightly because it gives you credibility. It gives you credibility that opens specific doors. And I'm honest about this one. Let's stop lying. Let's stop even pretending. Let's not pretend that having a PhD does not make you a global employee. It matters. Let's stop all those false modesty. There are conversations I'll be able to have right now that would carry different weight because of the credential. Policy conversations, clinical conversations, academic conversations, consulting conversations, conversations around the technical aspect of my research area. Not because the letters are magic. They are not suddenly magic. They've been there. But because they signal a particular kind of sustained rigor, sustained intellectual rigor that certain audiences respond to. It might not be for everyone, but certain people would respond to whatever I'm going to produce right now. For what I want to build with Yoga 360, the intersection of health, innovation, storytelling, trauma, career perspective, the systemic change, that credibility around building, around the PhD process is genuinely useful. Another thing PhD does for you is that it gives you yourself, to know yourself. This is the one that I did not expect. I didn't expect that I was ever going to find myself doing a PhD. In fact, one would think that I'm going to lose myself. One would think that if you hear that somebody is going to a research program, they're like, that person probably lose, themselves. But that's not what it did to me. The PhD has introduced me to a version of myself that I do not fully know, existed. See this me on camera right now, I probably wouldn't be doing this. Now, I thought about starting a podcast as early as 2020 during the pandemic. For one, I didn't even know what it was called. Secondly, when I knew what it was called, I didn't think I would be that person that will sit in front of a camera, or that person whose voice would be allowed to be out there, or whose voice I will allow to be out there. I didn't think I was that person. But look, I'm here right now. This is a version of Rhoda who can hold uncertainty without flinching. Right now, I don't know how next month in my recruitment journey is going to be. There is something in my calendar I thought I was going to start next month. But right now, I don't know how it's going to be. But I'm not flinching. Right now, I can receive critique without collapsing. My supervisor can tell me anything now, and I'm okay with it. I can build something slowly, carefully over years, without that rush of let's do it now, let's put it in the market now, let's do it now, no. That dopamine heat of quick wins, I can actually sustain it. I can actually hold it. So that I now believe in the value of whatever it is I'm building. Now, this person has always been inside of me. It's just that this process drew her out. I don't know if that's worth it for you, right? But only you can decide that. Like I said, depends on you. But for me, it's worth it. With full knowledge of the cost, yes, it's worth it. With my full chest, this program is worth it for me. If not for anything, it helped me find this version of Rhoda I do not take for granted. So let me get practical for a moment before I finish off something. Because I think that the most useful thing I can do in this episode is to give you a genuine framework for making this decision. If you're about either making it or you're considering leaving, or you're still in the middle of it, you should seriously consider a PhD. If you have a question that you cannot leave alone, you have, that question that existing literature doesn't adequately answer, because, and you think you are dedicated enough to give out years of your life into understanding that question. You are genuinely comfortable with not knowing something. You are comfortable with being wrong most of the times. You're comfortable with revising, editing, and being criticized. You have a clear sense of how the credential connects to what you're building. Specifically, you have, and especially a support system, you have that support system that can carry some weight while you carry the PhD. You see this one, especially for immigrant people. You have a support system. Be able to say, you carry this, I carry my PhD. Or you carry this one, I need to do this for this PhD. I'm not going to go into that today, maybe some other time. But support system, accept. People want to clean your house for you, I agree. People want to help you look after your kids, I agree. People want to help you financially, I agree. This is not the time to be proud and say at my age, some people should not, or some person should not be helping me. No. Accept it. You need all the help. You need all the help that you can get in this process. You have done an honest audit of your motivations. Yeah, you need to do an honest audit of your motivations. Not the one that sounds good. The real ones, not the ones people will say when you finish. The real ones. You need to pause. You need to think harder. If you're either using the PhD as a way to avoid some form of, to avoid a decision about your career, or you're running away from something. Is it that you're running away from something or you're running into something? You need regular external validation to feel competent. Of course, that's for some people, that's why they're doing a PhD. External validation. What people will say, how people will hail you. Because a PhD will told that at the end of the day, you see that external validation will mean nothing to you. It requires work. Again, your financial situation would put you under severe stress during the PhD process. And if you have not yet had that real important conversation with someone who is currently doing one, do so. Look for a PhD student and talk to. Not someone who has finished. Not someone who finished 5 years ago. But, people that have finished PhD, especially 3, 5 years, 10 years ago, they already made peace with you. So they might not really give you the real vision or how it is really, because of course they might have forgotten the pain of what it took them. Right? You need motivation, or you need to speak with someone who is in the middle of it and can tell you the truth. And that's why I'm making this video, because I'm in the middle of it. I can tell you the truth. So leave your questions in the comment section, DM me when you can, and let's, discuss some of these things before you decide to take that leap. And if you're already in a PhD program anywhere in the world, and you're wondering whether to continue, whether to leave or to pause, that's a whole conversation on its own. And what I would say is the decision to leave a PhD, if that is the right decision, it's not failure. It's sometimes the most courageous and most self-aware thing a person can do. Don't look at the sunk cost of the years already spent. That's not good enough reason to spend more years in something that is wrong for you. So don't look at all that. It will be worse if you spend more years and still leave at the end. Trust yourself to know the difference. Give yourself the opportunity, that leverage to actually warm up to yourself and make the right decision for yourself. I want to close this episode the way that I like to close every honest conversations I have with myself. I need to go back. If I could sit down with the version of me that was deciding whether to begin this doctoral journey, the version that, all the questions and all the uncertainty about maybe moving to a new country or starting another program after a very, very draining master's degree. Now, with all the people in my life who had opinions about what I should do, now here's what I'll say to that person who wants to start a PhD. Go in with your whole self, with whoever you were, whatever occupation, whatever role, as a mother, as a father. Go in holistically. Don't leave anyone out. As a singer, as a musician, go in with everything you are. Don't say, okay, because it's research or it's academia, then I'm only going to come in with the clean or sanitized part of it. No. Whatever, your holistic person belongs in your research. Don't leave it at the door because you think that academia will say, oh, no, you only bring the clean version of the professional in you. Secondly, find your people, the ones who understand your terrain. Other doctoral students might do, but most of the times when you meet doctoral students, you always talk about how difficult the process is. Some of you gossip your supervisors when you meet is okay. But also, meet with people outside of academia, people that can remind you of who you are especially when the process becomes difficult. Learn how to write down things, write down everything, not just the data, write down the experience, write down the frustration of data collection, the frustration of designing your research. Write down the moment that participant, said something that shifted your thinking. That 11 p.m., 12 a.m. realization that, your framework needs to change. Write it down. Those moments are as much part of the contribution as the findings. One day, in a journal article, in a podcast episode like today's one, in a book, those things you wrote down will be exactly what someone else would need to read or hear or listen to. Trust the slowness. Everything worthwhile that I've built in my life has been built slowly. It was not easy building this thing slowly, but then, yeah, I'm here today. The PhD is the slowest thing I've ever done, after my master's. But it's also, in some ways, the most honest thing I've done. And know this, whatever you decide, whether you decide to start the PhD program to continue to live, you are not your degree, right? You are not your title. You are the quality of your thinking, the depth of your care and responsibility, the integrity of how you show up for yourself, for the people around you, not just some institution grant or whatever, and nothing can revoke that. It belongs to you. Nothing can take that away from you. So, brothers and sisters, is your PhD worth it? For some people, deeply, yes. For others, genuinely, no. And for some, the ones, currently in the middle, and the answer is, I don't know yet. And that's okay. That's okay. What I want you to take from this episode is not some verdict or some yes, no. It's the permission to be you, the permission to love yourself, the permission to want more information before you decide, not just making a leap and regretting later. The permission to be it and still have doubts. You can have doubts. You also have the permission to live if living is right for you. Permission to stay if staying is right for you. The question is worth asking. You are worth asking that question carefully. So before you go, I'd love to know where you are in this journey. Are you considering a PhD? Are you currently doing one? Are you done with one? We'll need you to tell us, give us some tips. Did you leave one, or are you about leaving one? Drop it in the comment section, or you can just send me a DM on Instagram. I genuinely want to know because it will help me and some others too. And really, I read every single comment. And if this episode hits something real for you, please share it. Share it with someone. Share it with people. With the person in your life that is wrestling with this question at 2 a.m. They did this conversation. At least they need to know that they are not alone. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't already, please. Because next week, we're going somewhere equally honest. We might not be talking about a PhD for a while, but then we'll be talking about moving to New Zealand, this beautiful country. I always talk about moving to New Zealand, but I'll talk about it in a professional context with which nobody tells you. What shocked me when I came, what I wish I had known. My name is Rhoda, if you don't know, and this is Rhoda 360, and we're always having honest conversations about the full 360 degrees. So guys, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.